Tell me about your mom's death and what happened.
A little bit of a preamble to that one. My father grew depressed. He was somewhere around 65 years old. We didn't have the medication in those days, and we didn't know that it was the length of the time that the serotonin would be effective in his brain. None of the things that we treat depression with these days were available. And it was obvious at Christmas time that my dad was very depressed. So my mom came to me and said, I want you to take Shirley and I over to Springfield Hospital and have this problem evaluated and looked at. Because you're stronger than the other boys and you can take it. I didn't really know what she meant by that, but the idea that I was stronger had some fancy for me. So we got in the Mercury and we drove to Springfield. I drove. And we got over to St. John's Hospital in Springfield. And a expert doctor in problems of that ilk took my dad in and went through various and sundry kinds of examinations. And after a while he came out and he said, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but I think your father has hardening of the arteries, and this condition is never really going to be any better.
And this is in 1957?
This is in 1953.
53. Mm-hmm.
This is December of 52, actually, right after Christmas. And he said, I want you to leave him here, and we'll see what we can do. But we don't know if we can ever get him any better or not. Probably not, because of hardening of the arteries, his age. And so we went out there, and both of us were just devastated. And she said to me in the car, and I'm trying to drive and I'm crying, she said, you cannot tell the other kids what that doctor said. It's too awful. That's between you and I. And we're going to work with this as best we can, but you're not to let them know at all. That was also very hard. And so maybe a week later, January 3rd or 2nd, Leon is elected to take her over there to see how he's doing in the hospital. And so Leon is driving along that road between Decatur and Springfield, and a local fire department, rural fire department, has gotten together to go to a fire. And they've gotten the wrong direction, so they have to come back around and cross over the main highway that Leon is on driving. And they've all come up there with the fire truck and the other firefighters behind in their cars, and they're waiting to cross the highway. Meantime, Leon and my mother headed west on that highway, coming up on the intersection. And one of the people there decided there's no point in waiting. They pulled out on the other side of the waiting cars and drove up and made an attempt to dash across the highway. Dashed out smack dab in front of Leon and my mother. Those were the days before seatbelts. And so when the car hit, it hit broadside. That is, our car hit his broadside. And my mother was thrown into the windshield, breaking the windshield and then falling down into the footwell. When things stopped, Leon got out, and he wasn't hurt that much. Somehow steering wheel was bent and whatnot. But he was having a hard time trying to get my mother, who was unconscious, up out of the footwell. And he yelled for help. People had gathered by that time. And everybody, it always seemed strange to me, everybody wanted to see, but nobody wanted to help. Well, they did. They did get her up and out of there. And she was taken into the Decatur Memorial Hospital. Life is strange. Quake and I were at the YMCA in Decatur. We had just finished our lifeguard instructor program. Not lifeguard, the electronic device, lifeguard, the Red Cross life-saving method of swimming. And we were just finishing that, and I guess Brother Leon knew that we were there, so they called over there and they said, come over to the hospital. Your mom's been in a terrible accident. So I went to the hospital, and she was unconscious, tubes and whatnot, and gurgling sounds, and it was obvious from her face that horrible, horrible blunt trauma. And the problem they had at that moment was containing the bleeding within the brain cavity because of the hit that the brain had taken. And I stayed there that night. I don't think that Quentin and Leon were there. I met a young nurse who took pity on me in the middle of the night and went down and fixed me a sandwich in the kitchen. Came back up and gave me the sandwich. And the end of it is foggy in my mind. She didn't make it that much longer because of the bleeding and the pressure in the cavity of the brain. And so the mainstay of our family, our mother, was no longer with us. And at her funeral, Aunt Leah said, well, the Lord saw fit to take her before she drifted further away from the church at this time. So he saved her. Good grief. Can you imagine?
Because she felt that Evelyn Kirk was drifting from the church?
Yes, that was the foot she put forward at the and not without some notion. As my mother grew further, as us kids had problems with answering things about the church, it also caused her to have some problems, and she had tried to work through some of those with Aunt Leah for us and for herself. And she had not been entirely successful. Furthermore, more than you need to know, Agnes Lane, who lived across the street from us, was an old biddy. And she peeked out from behind her Venetian blinds all the time to see what was going on over at our house, because we were the entertainment for her. Mm-hmm. And she decided that Russell Ashbrook, all of us kids considered him our friend and our school superintendent, and my mother were having an affair in front of us 7 kids, I might add. We all liked Russell Ashbrook. He was probably 8 years my mother's junior. And he did like my mom. You know, she was fiery, she was funny, she was alive, she was full of energy. And he liked her, there's no doubt about that. And he liked his own wife and his own kids. And I had traveled with him and his family, and Leon adored him, and they took care of him years later and whatnot. But I don't think there was any, quote, sexual affair between my mother and Russell Ashbrook. But it was reported by Agnes to Aunt Leah that that was happening. Yeah.
Oh boy.